Hey everyone, it's Meseidy, and welcome to another episode of Thinking Out Loud, my consistently inconsistent podcast. Today I'm going to be reading an article that I recently published on my Substack that you can find at itsmeseidy.com. And if you want to see any of the sources or references for today's episode, I would recommend that you check out the article there at itsmeseidy.com. Innocent lives lost, political bias exposed. The media and Biden's response to a tragedy differs depending on the victims. On the last Monday of March, just 2 weeks before Easter, 200 children between the ages of 3 to 12 sat in their classrooms at the private Christian school, the Covenant School in Nashville, Tennessee. The typically bustling sounds of children playing and learning were suddenly disrupted by the sounds of gunshots and shattering glass. The intermittent sounds of gunshots continued for approximately 15 minutes. When they finally went silent, the lives of 6 innocent people, including 3 9-year-olds, were tragically ended, and a community was left traumatized. I'll share the details of this tragic event that resulted in the loss of 6 innocent lives, the events leading up to the shooting, and finally, the disappointing, inconsistent, and politicized response from the media and the Biden administration. The last Monday of March. Audrey Hale was a 28-year-old woman and former student of the Covenant School. She was described by those who knew her as quiet and sweet, and many did not know she had recently begun to identify as a man. She left her parents' home where she lived wearing a white t-shirt, camouflage pants, and a red baseball cap while carrying a red bag. Her mother did not know it then, but she likely was carrying several firearms in that bag. They did not know that Hale had legally purchased 7 guns from 5 different local gun stores and had been planning a mass shooting for months. Hale's parents knew she had owned a firearm, but it was their understanding that she had sold it. So they did not think anything of the red bag she carried that morning when leaving the house. Hale got into her Honda Fit and drove from her house located at the 3000 block of Brightwood Avenue to the neighborhood of Green Hills. She arrived in the parking lot of the Covenant School at 9:54 a.m. At 9:57, she sent an Instagram message to her former basketball teammate and friend, Avriana Patton. "I'm planning to die today. You'll probably hear about me on the news after I die. My family doesn't know what I'm about to do. One day this will make more sense. I've left more than enough evidence behind, but something bad is about to happen." Patton calls the suicide prevention line and Nashville police. At 10:11 a.m., school surveillance footage captures Hale at a locked side entrance with glass doors. Hale raises her firearm and shoots out the glass. She then climbs in through the doors carrying a Kel-Tec Sub 2000, a Grunt rifle, and a 9mm pistol while wearing a vest carrying additional magazines. It's reported that Hale pulled the fire alarm to lure students and teachers out of their classrooms. At 10:13 a.m., the first of several 911 calls were placed reporting the shooting. One caller reported leaving the church with 6 preschool-age children upon learning about the active shooter threat. The dispatcher was told that the attacker was a white man in camouflage with a vest and an assault rifle. Another caller, a teacher, speaks with the dispatcher in a hushed tone. A child can be heard whimpering in the background. When the dispatcher asks if she is in a safe place, the woman tells the dispatcher, "We're located upstairs by the art room hallway." Gunshots can be heard in the background.
Shots? Do you know how many?
It sounds like somebody's shooting guns.
Okay, you're still hearing shot. You're still hearing shots.
No, it sounds like they stopped at the moment.
Okay. And what's your first and last name?
Tiffany Dupree.
And what's the phone number you're calling from?
Everybody meeting to the store.
And what number are you calling from? Do you want to speak to the police when they come out?
I'm happy to do that, yes, but I haven't. Yeah.
Okay. And so, okay. So what are you in a safe spot right now?
I think so.
getting a lot of help started, okay? We've had 2 other callers saying this as well. So what, are you hearing gunshots now?
No.
No. Are you guys locking the school down?
I don't know. It sounds like
Okay. All right, we've got help on the way. But are you hearing shots now?
no.
Okay.
But we're in the art room closet.
Okay.
Yes, I hear another shot.
You did?
I'm hearing more shots.
Okay.
We're upstairs by the art room hallway.
You're upstairs by what hallway?
In the art room.
Art room.
Yes, please hurry. I'm hearing you.
They're coming. And
they sound kind of close.
Try to stay quiet. I don't know what's going on there.
Okay.
But just try to stay quiet. We've got a lot of help coming to you, okay? Do you feel safe to go ahead and disconnect? Yes, ma'am. They're coming lights and sirens. Do you feel okay for me to disconnect?
Huh?
Okay. All right. Just call us back if anything changes, okay? But I've got them coming to you.
Chad Scruggs, Covenant Presbyterian senior pastor and the father of one of the victims, called emergency services after learning about the shooting. "Are you inside?" the dispatcher asks after Scruggs says there's an active shooter. "No, I'm the lead pastor. I'm going that way now," Scruggs replies, adding that he was getting calls from the inside. There's no sign during the call whether Scruggs knew if his daughter had been shot. At 10:25 a.m., Nashville Metro Police arrived at the school and entered the building, clearing the first floor. Shots can be heard from the second floor. The officers climb up 2 flights of stairs, arrive at the second floor, and head down a hallway that opens up to what appears to be a reception area with an atrium to the right. Hale fires at the officers, and the officers return fire. 10:27 a.m., police confirm that Hale is dead. Hale had fired 157 total rounds and killed 6 people. Evelyn Dickhouse, 9. William Kinney, 9. Haley Scruggs, 9. Catherine Coates, 60. Cynthia Peak, 61. And Mike Hill, 61. Mike Hill was a school custodian. Catherine Coates was the head of the Covenant School. Cynthia Peak was a substitute teacher. Haley Scruggs was a 3rd grader and daughter of the lead pastor, Chad Scruggs, and she was classmates with Evelyn Dickhouse, who was also killed. William Kinney was a 3rd grader at the Covenant School. What did we learn after the shooting? Hale acted alone when she targeted the Covenant School. However, during an interview with NBC Lester's Holt, Nashville Police Chief John Drake stated that she had considered other targets, including a mall and possibly family. Still, she was concerned about the security at these other locations and determined that the school was an easier target. Drake stated that the victims were fired upon at random. It had been incorrectly reported at one time that Hale was being counseled by lead pastor Chad Scruggs, whose daughter Haley Scruggs was a victim of Hale's. Pastor Scruggs was not counseling Hale, and in fact had never met her. Within her belongings, a manifesto was discovered. The Nashville police handed over the manifesto to the FBI, and it's yet to be released. Many are beginning to doubt if it'll ever be released. On Friday, Nashville Channel 5 reported during a Tennessee Sheriff's Association meeting that Director of the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, David Roush, provided information about the manifesto found at the Nashville shooter's home. According to Roush, the material did not provide any clear motive for the shooting and instead consisted of rambled writings. Roush said that the journals did not mention any specific political, religious, or social issues. Instead, the journals seemed to focus on idealizing previous school shooters. This partially contradicts what Chief Drake said during interviews shortly following the shooting. When asked if how she identified had anything to do with her targeting the school, Chief Drake responded, "There is some theory to that. We are investigating all the leads, and once we know exactly, we'll let you know."
I'm sorry, I knocked someone's mic over. I didn't hear you say that again, sir.
Is there any reason to believe that how she identifies has any motive for targeting the school?
We can give you that at a later time. There is some theory to that. We're investigating all the leads, and once we know exactly, we'll let you know.
So was this a targeted attack?
It was.
The motive behind the school shooting is still unknown. Hale used male pronouns on social media, indicating that Hale was transgender. During the police interview with the parents stated that Hale was under doctor's care for an emotional disorder. What that disorder was and how she was being treated or by whom is not known. The Daily Mail reports that Hale, who recently changed her name to Aiden and identified as gay and transgender, was at odds with her Christian parents, who refused to accept her gender identity. The Daily Mail also reported that Hale had to wait to leave her home in order to dress as a man. A source close to the family told the Daily Beast that Hale was autistic but high functioning and, quote, relatively recently announced she was transgender, identifying as he, him. In a video from an art show from 2020, she was still using the name Audrey.
It's been hard, but it's also been an amazing experience when it comes to developing my creative talents and growing as an artist.
Her LinkedIn profile also had the name Audrey, although she listed he, him pronouns. She also signed off on one of her last Instagram messages to her former classmate, Audrey, parentheses, Aiden. Hale graduated from Meseidy College of Art and Design in Nashville and worked as a freelance graphic designer and a part-time grocery shopper. And she won Most Improved and Class Participation Awards from Meseidy. Acquaintances say that she was deeply affected and heartbroken over the 2022 death of Sydney Sims, a girl she was infatuated with, who had played on the same basketball team in school, according to Samira Hardcastle, a classmate of both girls. Hale had posted a TikTok on a since-deleted account, dedicating it to Sid in February. Hardcastle said that she had last seen Audrey a month ago and thought Audrey looked up to Sydney. Maria Colmy, a former instructor at the Meseidy College of Art and Design who taught Hale, said her transition began about the same time as she was grieving the loss of her friend Sydney. The victims are not big enough victims to merit the same response as real victims. It's unfortunate but not surprising that politicians, activists, and the media will politicize an event to push an agenda or narrative in the aftermath of a tragic event. And let me be clear, everyone does it, but the politicization and response, or lack of response, in this particular instance, is very telling. In virtually every past mass shooting that took place within a religious or minority community, hatred against the victim's religious beliefs or the community affiliation is mentioned. However, the killing of 6 innocent Christians by a woman who identified as transgender was not given any significance by the Biden administration or the mainstream media. The media's bias is showing. Of course, the media reported on the event, provided details about Hale, and published the obligatory gun control articles, but they never once presented the hypothesis of this being a hate crime. Even in the past, accusations of hate crime or extremism would typically follow an event like the Covenant School shooting. There were no articles about the previous recent shootings perpetrated by transgender individuals, the increased hateful language on social media towards Christians, or the 2 planned shootings by transgender individuals that was thwarted by authorities the week following the Covenant School shooting. The media instead focused on making sure that they were using the correct pronouns, and CBS News executives told their staffers not to mention Hale's transgender identity. Quote, "The shooter's gender identity has not been confirmed by CBS News," a memo obtained by the New York Post stated. Quote, "As such, we should avoid any mention of it as it has no known relevance to the crime. Should that change, we can and will revisit." USA Today tweeted, "Police on Monday afternoon said that the shooter was a transgender man. Officials had initially misidentified the gender of the shooter." A freelance reporter for NBC News, Benjamin Ryan, attempted to link the shooting to the Daily Wire headquartered in Nashville, and its commentators Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh, and Michael Knowles. The tweet has since been deleted, but screenshots are forever. The tweet said, "NBC has ID'd the Nashville school shooter as Audrey Hale, 28, who identifies as transgender and had no previous criminal record. Nashville is the home to the Daily Wire, a hub of anti-trans activity by Matt Walsh, Ben Shapiro, and Michael Knowles." Not surprisingly, the Biden administration and the media were on the same page, but politicians have to politician and take it a step further. Biden's bias is showing. It has been over 2 weeks since the small community of Covenant Presbyterian was forever changed. Biden has yet to mention the victims were Christian or that a hate crime was committed, even though in the past he has been very quick to make such connections even when there was no evidence of it being the case. A reminder, this occurred a short time before Easter and within the same week of Trans Day visibility. Tennessee had recently been in the news for passing bills restricting drag shows in front of minors and banning medical transitions for minors. Also, a protest outside the Supreme Court called Trans Day of Vengeance, organized by the Trans Radical Activist Network, was planned for Friday. Biden first publicly mentioned the shooting while delivering remarks at the Small Business Administration's Women's Business Summit in the East Room of the White House. But before he mentioned the shooting, he joked about ice cream, which led to a very awkward moment.
My name is Joe Biden. I'm Dr. Joe Biden's husband. And I ate Jenny's ice cream, chocolate chip. I came down because I heard there was chocolate chip ice cream. By the way, I have a whole refrigerator full upstairs. You think I'm kidding? I'm not. God. Ben, how are you, pal? One of the best guys in the United States Congress, Ben Cardin. Folks, welcome to the White House.
After this, he wanted to, quote, speak very briefly about the school shooting in Nashville, Tennessee, calling it sick, heartbreaking, and a family's worst nightmare. And then he shifted to a call for an assault weapons ban. However, Biden does not broach the victim's Christian faith or the fact that the perpetrator was trans. And on the day following the shooting, Senator Josh Hawley requested that the FBI investigate the shooting as a hate crime. When Biden is asked if he believes the shooting could be a hate crime against Christians, he responds, I don't know. When told that Hawley believes it was, he jokes and responds, then probably not.
Nashville school shooting. You believe that Christians were targeted? I have no idea. Josh Hawley believes they were. What do you say to that? Well, I probably don't that. Probably don't that. No, I have no idea.
He does, however, release a Trans Day of Visibility statement, accusing MAGA extremists of advancing hundreds of hateful and extreme state laws that target transgender kids and their families. That's a quote. And when he finally does address the shooting on social media, the Christian faith of the victims is omitted. Suddenly, he's not addressing the clear religious nature of the shooting. He did call for an assault weapons ban, though he did not mention the Nashville shooting in that tweet, at least not until a later tweet where he wrote that, quote, we owe them action. The action, of course, is an assault weapons ban. Biden did issue a proclamation directing that flags be put at half-staff in honor of the victims. 4 days later, the White House released a statement and fact sheet on Transgender Day of Visibility. The same day, on Instagram and Twitter, Biden shared a graphic stating, transgender people deserve love, dignity, and respect. The caption read, to the transgender community, we want you to know you are seen, made in the image of God, and deserving of dignity, respect, and support. And know this, you are so brave. Affirming your child's identity is one of the most powerful things you can do to keep them safe and healthy. Our administration will never quit fighting to stop discrimination, stand against unjust state laws, and guarantee everyone the fundamental right and freedom to be who they are. This administration does not care about its Christian citizens. It doesn't fit well with the political agenda or its voter base. Not when the victims are Christian, the majority of them white, and the perpetrator is trans. But it fully supports the medical transition of minor children, making them lifelong medical patients. During a press briefing, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said the following, LGBTQIA plus kids are resilient. They are fierce. They fight back. They're not going anywhere, and we have their back. This administration has their back. Biden is comfortable attributing LGBT and religious hate to motives. If you're saying, but we don't know the motive, they haven't released the manifesto, I would say you are correct. We don't know the motive. But that has never stopped Biden in the past from politicizing religion or the alleged marginalized identity of victims in other shootings and attributing them to unconfirmed motives. On March 17th, just over a week before the Covenant School shooting, Biden commemorated the 2-year anniversary of the Atlanta area spa shootings, in which 8 people, 6 of them Asian women, were killed, using the opportunity to bring attention to anti-Asian hate. In his statement, Biden said, "I want you to know that I see you. My administration sees you, and we are determined to end the scourge of gun violence, anti-Asian hate, and all forms of racism and extremism in this nation." The only problem is authorities attributed his motive to sex addiction, not racism. In 2022, Biden was completely fine with mentioning the religion of victims of the 2012 Sikh temple in Oak Creek, Wisconsin, resulting in 6 deaths. The perpetrator did have a history of white supremacist sympathies. Still, the motive was not confirmed. But Biden was comfortable mentioning it was, quote, the deadliest attack on Sikh Americans in our nation's history. He also said that attacks on houses of worship have become more common over the past decade. And, quote, no one should fear for their life when they bow their head in prayer or go about their lives in America. In 2021, Biden and Vice President Harris released statements to commemorate the 3 years since the Pittsburgh Tree of Life Synagogue shooting that left 11 dead. The victims' faith was a central focus of their statements, and it is reported that the perpetrator made anti-Semitic comments during the shooting. Again, Biden was comfortable mentioning the victims' faith. Also in 2021, just 4 months after Biden was sworn in as president, he designated the Pulse nightclub in Orlando, Florida, a national memorial to honor the 49 people killed in a 2016 mass shooting. He urged Congress to pass laws explicitly protecting the civil rights of LGBTQ people. Quote, our presence this afternoon makes a very strong statement. Pride is back in the White House. That's what Biden said after being introduced by Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, who is openly gay, and a young transgender man, Ashton Moda. Only thing is that authorities attributed the motive of the shooting at the Pulse nightclub to an act of Islamic extremism by a 29-year-old U.S. citizen of Afghan descent. And it was the civil rights activists that said that the massacre was a hate crime targeting gay men and Latinos that frequented the club. In November 2022, a man entered the LGBTQ nightclub, Club Q in Colorado Springs, killing 5 and injuring 25. Following the shooting, Biden denounced the targeting of the LGBTQ community. Quote, places that are supposed to be safe spaces of acceptance and celebration should never be turned into places of terror and violence. We cannot and must not tolerate hate. There was no known motive at the time of this statement, and there still isn't. However, in the footnotes of court filings, it is indicated that the shooter identifies as non-binary, uses they-them pronouns, and wants to be referred to with the prefix mix, MX, period. Whether this is true or a tactic is not known, just like the motive. Visiting the victims. Depending on the political optics a tragedy can provide will determine if it merits a personal visit, a phone call, a First Lady visit, or a lie. First Lady Dr. Jill Biden, because we can't forget that she's a doctor, attended the candlelight vigil honoring the 6 victims of the shooting at the Covenant School. She did not meet with any of the families, make any remarks, and President Biden has made no contact with any of the victims' families or members of Covenant Presbyterian. On May 14th, 2022, a shooting occurred at the Tops Friendly Supermarket in the predominantly Black neighborhood in Buffalo, New York, killing 10 victims. Biden visited Buffalo a few days later and spoke a short distance from the grocery store, calling the shooting a, quote, murderous racist rampage and domestic terrorism. He placed flowers at the memorial near the store, met with the family of the victims and first responders, and condemned white supremacy as a poison that must be rejected. Following the Robin Elementary School shooting in the predominantly Latin community of Uvalde, where 19 students died, Biden and the First Lady visited Uvalde and met with the victims' families. In November 2022, Biden and the First Lady called and spoke with the owners of Club Q on Thanksgiving Day, and during the call, they reiterated support for the vibrant and strong Club Q family and commitment to fighting back against hate and gun violence. According to the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation, also known as GLAAD. On January 21st, a 72-year-old Vietnamese man killed 11 people at the Star Ballroom Dance Studio in Monterey Park, California, a predominantly Asian community, after an all-day Lunar New Year festival. Brandon Say disarmed the man in the lobby. The shooter fled and was later found dead in a van from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The motive was speculated to be a family dispute, but it remains unknown. Biden later visited Monterey Park on March 14th, where he met with Say and announced an executive order to increase the number of background checks. Quote, all have lived lives of love, sacrifice, and service for their families, for their community. They represent a bigger story. Who we are as Americans, embodying the simple truth that our diversity is the strength of this nation. Finally, if Biden can't visit the families of shooting victims, he lies about it. And he says he did. In a 2019 campaign ad, Biden claimed that he visited and met with every one of the families of the victims of the Sandy Hook shooting. The problem is that Connecticut State Senate candidate J.T. Lewis, the brother of one of the victims, said it was a lie. In a tweet, he wrote, "This is a lie. Obama came to Sandy Hook and met with every family. Joe Biden did not. In fact, my family was not allowed on Air Force One because we refused to support Obama-Biden gun control efforts. Also, I found no news reports or images that indicated that Biden had accompanied Obama to visit the families of the Sandy Hook victims." Conclusion. The city of Nashville and the community of the Covenant School suffered an unquestionably tragic loss. These horrible events have a lasting traumatic effect on the people who are left behind to pick up the pieces. And I'm not going to debate the solution or what caused these shootings. That debate is happening all over social media, the news, and in the halls of Congress. I want to talk about the biased response in the aftermath of this tragedy. While other tragedies that can be affiliated with so-called marginalized communities merited phone calls, visits, and anti-hate remarks and campaigns from our administration, the Covenant School families did not. All they got was a visual photo op visit from the First Lady, where she didn't even speak, and ice cream jokes from the president before he made any mention of the tragedy. But he did not forget to call for an assault weapons ban before quickly shifting to declaring support for the medical gender transition of minors and celebrating Trans Day of Visibility. The media's larger concern was protecting Hale, and by proxy, they believed they were protecting the transgender people. They were all very careful to respect her pronouns and to not mention too often that the victims were Christian unless it was to say how her Christian parents did not support her decision to transition. The message is clear. A white Christian community and its victims are not victims enough to merit the same response as those the media and the Biden administration deem to be true victims. In order for the media and this administration to care and call out hate, you'll have to have the right skin color, the right religion, and or be LGBTQ. If you would like to support the Covenant School and Covenant Presbyterian Church, you can visit their website, or they have a link, and you select the March 27th fund, and you can make a donation there. There's also a button at the end of this post on my Substack, and you can find that at itsmeseidy.com.